I get asked quite often why I come for AA as a cult, something which steppers agree with, by the way, whenever they want to laugh about it. But it turns out cults actually aren't a joke, and I come for AA because, like any cult, it causes harm. This is the foreword of this book. 12-Step Horror Stories tells tales of unmitigated horror, and all of them occur in 12-step support groups or in treatment based on the 12-step of Alcoholics Anonymous. These stories cover a wide range of horrors. There is abuse by alcoholism counselors, many mentally ill themselves. There are therapists who refer people to AA purely because they themselves are alcoholics and can see no other way of dealing with alcohol problems. They are either incapable of discerning that their patients are having intensely negative reactions to AA, or simply can't deal with these reactions, including emotional breakdowns, relapses, and ultimately, in some cases, becoming unalive. There are AA members who exploit newcomers, both physically and schmexually. There are grape victims told to look for their part and even to make amends to their grapists. There are treatment center counselors who recommend jail for coerced clients who, even though no longer drug users, resist 12-step treatment. There are AA members who unalive after taking medical advice from their sponsors or other AA members. There are others who are driven to self-delete because by the cruel treatment they received in 12-step groups. And there are untreated emotional needs, both of the victims of AA groups and 12-step treatment centers, and of the aggressors in these groups. One comes away from these stories with the feeling that one has had a glimpse into hell, and there is a lot of exploited labor, which maybe the people writing this don't realize, but I will be pointing out. We can imagine AA advocates and members, indeed a whole treatment system based on the beliefs of AA, questioning Rebecca Franzway's work here. And indeed, she will be attacked, has already been attacked for her efforts, as have I. We can imagine AA advocates and members indeed. Whoops. So why tell such stories? Those who tell their stories in these pages reply, because the stories are true. Others add, why are we asked to accept at face value all the sugar-coated tales told by AA devotees and longtime members? Why is their reality better than ours? And I like to say that the bad stories are just as good as just as important as the good stories, and my channel will always be a place for them. Still, others simply want to get their stories off their chests. By doing so, they break their feelings of isolation and perhaps help others with similar tales who are still isolated. The diversity of voices in this collection of stories is remarkable, yet the stories paint a consistent picture that underlines their veracity. Themes. All cults are the same, so you can recognize the themes. We'll be pointing those out as well. In contrast to the reality of the experiences described in these stories, the American public is asked over and over again to accept what is patently untrue, that AA and 12-step treatment are invariably benign and helpful. We are asked to believe this because some people fervently believe that AA brought them personal salvation, or because, if they are not alcoholics themselves, they imagine that the United States, and increasingly the rest of the world, has a healthy, successful AA-based system to care for alcoholics. Nothing could be further from the truth. Since AA and treatment programs derived from it are based on folklore and on religious precepts, like powerlessness, acceptance, guidance from a higher power, confession of one's sins, etc., there is really no there. The dominant treatment model, and more than 95% of treatment programs in the United States, rely wholly, usually, or in good part, on the 12 steps. Is an emperor with no clothes. The dominant treatment model is an emperor with no clothes. It appeals to a relative few, while others are forced to go along for the ride. The over 1 million per year who attend due to court, employer, or other types of coercion. As for the rest, the overwhelming majority of those with alcohol problems, they stay as far away from AA as possible. The response from the treatment system and AA true believers to this massive disinterest in even antipathy toward AA They accuse all of these individuals of mental illness, of a desire to remain alcoholics, of a failure to note their true alcoholic state, and much more. In essence, they claim that the obvious and massive failure of the American alcoholism treatment system is due to those who are not helped by it. But we rarely hear from these people. Many would ask, who wants to listen to an alcoholic in denial or a dry drunk? The AA term for sober individuals who reject AA. Sorry about that. Apparently lime salt isn't the best thing to prop your phone up on. But we're going to have to make it work. In part, this book is a study of how such jargon, labels, and slogans are used to browbeat both those in AA and those who reject it. And my chapter in Culting of America on language is the most in-depth specific chapter because language is so important in cults. For their part, those in this book are incredibly brave. After reading their stories, one can hardly blame them for failing to succeed at the 12-step alcoholism treatment, or AA, although most whose stories appear in this book have eventually overcome their drinking problems, either on their own or with other forms of help, sometimes almost to spite AA. Instead of sinking into a hole, jails, institutions, or death, after rejecting AA, as AA told them they would, they've stood on their own 2 feet and have dared to challenge a sacrosanct American icon. That is why we should be so impressed with those brave enough to share their stories in this book. Those who contributed the stories here are strong and competent enough to perceive that what happened to them and around them in 12-step bedlam was wrong and harmful, and they had the courage to blow the whistle on it. This is an extremely healthy reaction that should be encouraged by those interested in mental health. Indeed, AA and the treatment industry are so powerful that people generally do not do well when they either buckle under to them or buck them, particularly since people exposed to AA and 12-step treatment are often fragile and in deep trouble emotionally. Most are likely to feel the way this young woman did. My very first experience with alcohol treatment and 12-step programs was frightening and intrusive. Today, I would have the confidence to speak up immediately against the verbal and emotional abuse I witnessed. But at age 21, I had not yet learned to trust my own judgment in the face of disapproval. I was very afraid of my own feelings, my own anger, and I think that's the very quality which allows the treatment industry to roll over so many people. Rebecca Franzway is one such brave person. Let us be clear about who Rebecca Franzway is and is not. She's not an ideologue. That is, she did not arrive at AA with a preconceived notion that it was wrong, harmful, or violated her values. Indeed, she is not by nature an activist. She does not approach people and activities with misgivings as though the world is a place rife with danger and disillusionment and in need of correction. She attended AA in good faith, after she was repeatedly referred there by counselors and therapists who did not bother to mention that they were AA members themselves. If anything, the kind of counselors one often meets when seeking help for a drinking problem. If anything, Rebecca and many of the others one encounters in this book were often too trusting and accepting. Of course, on the other hand, they were told over and over again, not only within AA groups and treatment programs, but throughout the culture, that Alcoholics Anonymous is the best way, the only way, to overcome alcoholism. Thus, in these stories, we see people put up with incredible affronts to their dignity and mental health. The worst of these personal assaults involve sexual harassment, abuse, and rape. As one woman describes her ordeal, we're going to have to skip over that. She concludes, the existing message which the women reinforce with their by-the-book responses acknowledges that men hunt down women and that the women must simply accept it. We're going to skip a little bit. Thus, it is a group lionized for championing the downtrodden, a group believed to be nurturing people and encouraging them to understand and express their experiences and feelings, is in fact far more often a mechanism of oppression. AA long ago ceased being the voluntaristic organization that I never believed it was in the first place. Especially treatment based on it, are now better typified as a system inflicted on the vulnerable and unwilling by an oppressive group of true believers who find it to their advantage to accept the received wisdom of the big book and to impose that truth on others. Stanton Peele, author Love and Addiction, Diseasing of America, The Truth About Addiction and Recovery.